Hi everybody, Ricky T23 here. Welcome to this build video. Today I'm going to be building a computer which is a reverse sleeper retro gaming PC. I got out my first computer back in around about 1996-97 and it was a Pentium 133 MHz computer with 16 megabytes of RAM and a 1 megabyte graphics chip. And back then I used it to play all of the classic games, build engine games and things like Quake, Quake 2, Unreal, Half-Life, Deus Ex. I always wished that I could have a proper 3D accelerator card because we couldn't afford one back then. So today I'm going to build a computer using some new parts and some of the classic, really expensive stuff from the 90s that I just couldn't afford. And I've been sort of dreaming about what it would have been like ever since. So here we go. Okay, let's have a look at the parts that I'm going to be using for this build. I've got a Chaintech ATX motherboard. It's a 6BTM. It's got an AGP slot, 4 PCI slots and 3 ISA slots that go up to 16 bits, and it's got a slot that you put the CPU into. It's got 4 RAM slots. The CPU that I'm going to be using is a Pentium 2 400 MHz CPU. It's got a 100 MHz bus speed, 512K of level 1 cache. It's using the stock Intel Pentium 2 cooler. I've got 4 128 megabyte DIMMs of RAM, 168 pin 100 MHz non-error correcting modules of SD RAM. The GPU that I'm going to be using is a Creative Riva TNT 16 megabyte card, which is an excellent card that the Creative released to compete with the Voodoo 2. The sound card that I'm going to be using for when I'm running Windows is a Sound Blaster Audigy SB0090, which also includes the Audigy drive. The hard disk drive that I'm using is a PNY 120GB solid state drive, which I'm going to use with an IDE to SATA adapter so that I can get it working on the old motherboard through the IDE port. The optical drive that I'm going to be using is this really nice, quiet, light-on SATA DVD rewriter. For the floppy disk, I'm going to be using the Gotek floppy disk emulator, which allows you to use a USB pen drive instead of 100 floppy disks. I've got a set of round IDE cables, which look really nice. The case I'm using is a Deepcool Tesseract ATX case. It's a full-size case. It's got 3 5¼ drive bays on the front and a 3.5-inch drive bay, which makes it excellent for this build because I need lots of drive bays on the front, and it's kind of hard to find cases these days that have lots of drive bays. The PSU that I'm going to be using is an Aerocool Cylon 600-watt PSU, which I picked because it's got lots of amps on the 3 and 5 volt rails. I've also got this rather fetching fan speed controller, which I'm not entirely sure what brand it is, but I bought it on eBay. It was less than a tenner. I've got a set of CDs that I've burned, which is Windows 95 OSR 2 on a CD-ROM, and another CD-ROM that I just filled up with drivers that I think I'm probably going to need. And I'm also using the Buffalo USB pen drive, which is excellent. It works with Windows 95 and Windows 98, and I can use it to transfer files without having to burn them onto a CD. And obviously I've got the USB pen drive that I use with the Gotek floppy emulator, which I've filled with the ISO image for the boot floppy for Windows 95. Now I've got the motherboard set up here on top of a cardboard box. First thing that I've got to do is get the slot open, ready to put the CPU in. Now the actual slot itself has got a little notch, so you can figure out which way around the CPU's got to go. As you can see, above the notch is shorter and below the notch is a longer segment, so I know that it goes in this way around. Just slide it in. In it should snap. So that's the CPU inserted. I've got my CPU fan header just down here, so I'm going to connect that to the CPU fan, and then I'm going to insert the RAM into the RAM slot. Also, by lining up the notches, you've got to make sure that the clips are open before you do this. Ta-da! There you go. As you can see, I've inserted the 4 DIMMs of RAM. We've got the CPU connected. The Aerocool Cylon power supply is just sat here. We've got our motherboard set up just here. I've got to plug in the 20-pin power connector, like so. Now I've got to plug in the graphics card into the AGP slot. All I've got to do is plug in the keyboard and the monitor, and we can give this thing a test. Okay guys, we're all set up. As you can see, I've got the monitor plugged into the graphics card there. I've got the keyboard plugged in. I've connected the power supply to the mains. Now I've just got to turn the power supply on, and then we can turn the motherboard on just by shorting out the power pins on this header here. So fans are spinning. I don't know if you can hear that. There's the monitor coming on. I don't know if you saw the Riva TNT BIOS message there. I've got a lot of memory. Half a gig of memory. Seems to be okay. That's all it can really do. It's done the post test. Now it's looking for a boot disk. Now with the computer motherboard set up and we've confirmed that it's all working, the next thing that I've got to do is put all of the components into the case. Now to build this computer we're going to need some tweezers, thermal tweezers, a glass hammer and these rubber nails. Hi, this is voiceover me from the future. This is the part of the build process where things started to go a little bit wrong and I had to improvise. It turns out that the case only actually has two 5¼ inch drives, so I had to take a palette knife to the top. It seemed to work out okay though in the end. There's the inside of the Audigy drive. There are no internal headers, which means I'm going to have to pass the cable through and use this port on the back to supply the power and the data to and from the drive. That's fine by me. I know that the whole point of this drive being external was for noise reduction in music production setups or just in general, but I just think it looks cool, so I'm going to mount it in the case. When I bought the motherboard on eBay, it was supplied with an I/O shield for the case. I ended up not using the I/O shield in the end, because I had to run the cable for the Sound Blaster Audigy through the case, and that was the only way of getting it back into the case. Okay guys, I've plugged in the VGA port, the keyboard and the monitor again. This time I'm going to turn it on and see what happens with the fan speed controller and the drives. Let's see if I can get it powered on. Well, the fan speed controller is definitely doing something. Computer's going to post. Hi everybody. Right, I'm up and running now. I made a few mistakes in the build. It's quite a bit later on. I've been doing lots of debugging and fault finding and swapped a few components out to get this thing up and running. The Gotek floppy emulator's working just fine now. I had not plugged in the correct power cable. The SSD is not playing ball very much with the SATA to IDE adapter. They're just not showing up in the BIOS at all. So I've switched to an IDE hard drive for the time being until I figure out what I can do. And I've had to incorporate a different SATA to IDE adapter, and I'm using both of the IDE controllers. But other than that, we seem to be getting somewhere now, so I'll check back when I'm ready to install Windows. Okay, a large amount of time has passed since I recorded the last clip of this video. In that time, I've come to the realization of a few things. The hard drive wasn't working because of the fact that it was too big. There's another hard drive there that I tried, which is also too big. Fortunately, I have this hard drive, which is 12.5 gigabyte IDE hard drive, which works perfectly. I tried to install Windows 95 and ran into a whole bunch of really horrible problems. I managed to get the Riva TNT working, managed to get the Sound Blaster Audigy working, but the USB ports on the back did not want to play ball. I managed to get them to show up in the device manager, but nothing was working. The USB flash drive's not working, the mouse isn't working, nothing that I tried was working on the USB. So I've decided that instead of trying to use Windows 95, I'm going to go ahead and use Windows 98. So what I'm going to do now is just tidy up the case a little bit, and then I'm going to install Windows 98. was around about this point in the build that I realised I was going to have to swap the optical drive for a different one. The problem with the Light-On SATA DVD rewriter that I was using was that it doesn't have the traditional 4-pin CD audio output that I could run into the sound card, and as a result, in Windows 95 and Windows 98 at least, that meant that I wouldn't be able to get the music running in some games. Luckily I have an IDE DVD rewriter that does have the 4-pin CD audio outputs, so I swapped it for that. Cable management is important to me. I ordered a 20-pin ATX power extension cable so that I could route the ATX power cable around the back of the chassis. I also routed as much of the Audigy drive internal cable around the back of the chassis as I possibly could. I ordered a third red LED fan so that we could see the inside of the case better, and I tried my best to tidy up the Audigy drive ribbon cables with a cable tie. It looks a lot cleaner inside having done these things, and I'm glad that I did. Okay, let's try that again. I've plugged in the floppy disk drive power this time. Better. Okay, we've booted into Windows 95 the boot disk. Now I'm going to format the C drive with the quick handle. Straight into Windows 98 installation. Just doing a quick drive check. Now time for the product key. Okay, we made it into the Windows 98 desktop. Now I've just got to install all the drivers. The first thing I'm going to install for the drivers is the chipset driver for the motherboard. Okay, now I'm going to install the sound card drivers to see if we can get some sound out of this thing. I went onto the Vogons driver archive and downloaded the ISO image for the CD. I'm going to install the drivers from there. At this part of the installation I always find that the system tends to hang, but after a while it starts up again and finishes. There we go. Now we've got basic Windows sound with the Sound Blaster Audigy. The next thing I'm going to do is install the DOS audio drivers just by running a little utility on the CD. I'm just going to have a quick look in the device manager to see the devices that we've got loaded in. Down here we've got the Creative Sound Blaster 16 emulation, that's the DOS driver there. So the next thing I'm going to install, I can install the driver for the Buffalo USB flash drive. I'm also going to install the video driver. Now to install the video driver, we go to my standard PCI graphics adapter, go to update driver, and I'm just going to specify the location. I'm installing the GeForce drivers version 8.05 because they support the Riva TNT and they're very fast. Everything looks much nicer now. I think it's gone into 16-bit color mode, which is much better than the 16 colors we were stuck with before. I'd like to set my resolution on this monitor to 1024 by 768. There we go, no exclamation marks in the device manager. All of the devices are installed. Display adapters showing up as the Riva TNT. And if I go into properties and click on advanced, we can see the NVIDIA settings options that we have here. Hardware acceleration set to full. Okay guys, let's try Quake 2. Oh yeah. As we can see, the Riva TNT is running Quake 2 just fine. The CD audio is coming through. That's fantastic. Half-Life running there. Okay guys, well this computer's coming on really great now. I mean, we've got the Riva TNT working, we've got the Sound Blaster Audio working, got these cool red fans. There are a couple of things which I've kept quiet about, which I did pick up before I even started this video. One of which is this 3DFX Voodoo 1 card, which I really wanted to try out. The other thing which I've been keeping quiet about is this. This is an ISA sound card. It's a Sound Blaster Pro 2.0 from 1991. I think they did make these up until at least 1992. It's the CT1600 from Creative Labs. It includes the Yamaha YMF262 OPL chip. Let's see if I can get a close-up of the chip on there so you can see it. There she is. This thing gives really nice sounding music. Got a OPL3 wavetable emulation, I think it's called. It's meant to sound really cool for music in DOS games. So I'm going to get these two cards into the computer. I'll do a little bit of cable management and then I'll see if I can get them working. There we go. Now if I go into display properties, we've got the Voodoo graphics settings there with the gamma level set at 1.7, so everything's ridiculously bright, but let's just leave it on default. Okay, to demonstrate the 3DFX Voodoo, let's open up a game which is Unreal. Now I had Unreal working before with the direct 3D renderer using the Riva TNT, but we're going to switch it over to the Glide renderer and see if we can get it working with the 3DFX Voodoo. So I'll just go into the options and advanced options, and then we go to the drivers section and switch the direct 3D driver over to 3DFX Glide for Windows, and then close that. And there we go. We're now using the Voodoo. Let's see how this runs. As you can see, the frame rate is a little bit choppy, but I think we're running this in 640 by 480, which back in the day you couldn't run it in this resolution with the software renderer. It would have been way slower, and it wouldn't have looked as good either. Alright, let's just start a game. Let's see how we get on. Just going to configure my controls.
Prisoners 8/9 escaping.
Now, when this game first came out, these graphics really were cutting edge. I mean, just this huge environment with texture filtering, and nobody had really seen much like this until then. Absolutely stunning. Whee! Oh well, guys, that was fun. Next up, we're going to boot into DOS and see if we can get Doom running with the OPL3 chip. First thing I'm going to do is put my Gotek floppy emulator onto the Windows 95 boot disk, and then I'm going to boot into DOS. Let me just turn this light off so you can see what's happening. Now, as you can see, I've already installed the drivers for, well, the Sound Blaster Pro control panel. So I can just go straight into Doom. I can't have it too loud, unfortunately, because my neighbours are asleep. Let's just play a quick game. I'm going to be using the keyboard. Ah, there's the music playing on the Yamaha OPL3 chip. Okay, let's see if I can still remember how to play this game using just a keyboard. Secret area, or one of them. Oh yeah, it's a secret door. I really do just love the way the music sounds on that Yamaha chip. It's got this sort of warm fuzziness to it. Well, I think that just about wraps it up for this video, guys. It's been really good fun making this fantastic old reverse sleeper PC with all these wonderful retro parts and some of the new parts. I hope to do another one of these build videos soon, so if you'd like to see that, don't forget to subscribe. And otherwise, I'll see you when I see you. Goodbye.